Good afternoon, and thank you for the opportunity to read my story to all of you assembled here today. It's a great honor to be chosen as the runner-up for the T. Rose Cogswell Memorial Fiction Competition, and I greatly appreciate it. I would like to thank the Cogswell family, the committee. I would like to thank Dr. David Elliott and the Communications Division for arranging and running this program. I'd like to thank the judging committee as well. I'd like to thank Brian Finelli and Amy Archer specifically as the teachers who have greatly influenced my work here while I'm at Keystone. And I would like to thank Mary Dower and the Weekender program, without which it would have been impossible for me to even think about having a degree in writing, let alone being so close to completion and coming this close in a competition. So I greatly appreciate it. Like many stories, my story has a kernel of truth, and the kernel of truth is that the boy in the story, Jack, who is 8 years old, is my husband. And the dog in the story, Bullett, was his dog when he was a boy, and Bullett is named after Roy Rogers' dog, Bullett. And my husband was an only child, adopted, and his family was in the service. And since we're talking 1959 or so, many service members lived in many areas of the country, and at this point in time they were transferred to Izmir, Turkey, which was still a pretty rough place at that time. So I'd like to give you a little visual aid. This is my husband Jack shortly after, maybe 8 years or 9 years afterwards, after the story. And this is the last surviving photo of Bullett. And Bullett ended his days in Japan, lived a long and happy life, and he was quite a remarkable dog and took many remarkable trips. My story is called The Chosen Child, which is the name of a poem about adopted children that hangs in Jack's bedroom in the story. I'm going to bring you in at the end of the story because it's the most exciting part. I have thrown in, of course, a pirate-like captain and an ayah or a maid called Anna, and a terrible storm, but they really did sail the Straits of Corinth, and they really did sleep in a tiny little box bed. And so we're in the middle of a terrible storm, and Jack has gotten up enough courage to go rescue his dog out of the luggage room because the dog is not happy, and he's keeping everyone awake. "I'm just walking my dog, sir." Jack stood straighter on the stairs below the captain. "I think maybe he should sleep with me, or else he'll wake all the guests." "I suppose he doesn't like the weather," the captain spoke, softly, menacingly, and Jack shivered. "No, sir," he said. Being with Bullett, Jack felt much braver. "You can't keep him down there, though. He's keeping everyone awake. Would you throw your best friend in the luggage room when the sea is rough? It's not a nice thing to do." Jack was beginning to feel indignant on Bullett's behalf. "Well, then I suppose we'd better do something about it." The captain swooped down the stairs and plucked 8-year-old Jack up with hardly any effort at all, and Jack gasped in surprise to find himself face down over the captain's back. The leash was snatched from his hand, and before he could even catch his breath, the captain swiftly jogged up the rest of the stairs and down the passage to Jack's room. Jack found himself standing outside his stateroom door, Bullett's leash thrust again in his hands. Surprised, Jack could only stand there, wondering how the captain had managed the trip so swiftly without stumbling or banging against the walls. Jack was so surprised he forgot to be afraid. "Here you go, young sir," the captain said. "Put some papers down for tonight. We wouldn't want the dog to be swept overboard doing his business." "No, sir," Jack stammered. "You'd better let him sleep in your box bed, too." "Oh, my mother won't let him get in bed." "But how else will he be kept quiet?" "You tell your mother it is captain's orders." "Yes, sir." Jack turned the knob and opened the door to his room. "One more thing," the captain said, laying his palm on Jack's shoulder. "Do not wander out again at night, Jack. With a sea this choppy, you or Bullett could get lost overboard and we would never know. You have a duty to keep Bullett quiet and happy and safe. Now you see to it." Jack looked up at the captain, looked at the earring, at the gold tooth, and then looked the captain right in the eye. "Yes, sir, and thank you, sir, for helping us." As the captain turned, Jack took a deep breath. "Are we going to be safe, sir? I mean, this is a terrible storm." Captain looked at Jack for a moment. "Do you think I would risk us all in a storm if I weren't certain we'd be fine?" "Well, no, sir, but maybe it's worse than anyone thought, or maybe we'll hit some rocks or something." "Nonsense. Let me tell you something, young man." The captain leaned forward and turned his head to the light so that Jack could see quite clearly the one tiny gold loop in his ear. "Do you see this?" "Yes, sir." "This loop is from my younger days when I was quite foolish. Back then I went to sea when I was just 12 years old, my mother having too many mouths to feed and not enough to feed them." Jack shivered, thinking of himself alone on the large ship. The captain continued, "Only certain ships will take an underage lad, you see. They aren't exactly legal, or concerned with who might own certain valuable items, if you catch my meaning." Jack nodded. "My first storm at sea was a terrible big storm. I thought for sure I would lose my breakfast, lunch, and dinner all at once. And worse, I had to climb the rigging to look for land to avoid it while the storm blew so that we would put in for repairs afterwards. Nowadays, I prefer to use a quiet motoring cruiser for short trips. But you see, I am still part of the seafaring tradition, so I will make you a bargain. Just like my captain did all those years ago, when you survive this, your first storm at sea, I will give you what was given to me after my first storm." "What was that, sir?" "Oh no, first you must survive the storm. Then you'll know. No one in your room gets lost overboard. No one gets hurt from stumbling about. Do we have a bargain?" The captain put out his hand for Jack, and after a moment Jack shook it. Then the captain offered his hand to Bullett, who offered a hasty paw to shake. "Now, young sir, inside you get with your fine animal. Put on some dry pajamas, and get into bed with your dog. He will keep you warm and dry, just the thing for a stormy night at sea. Good night to you, Jack, and you too, Bullett." "Thank you, sir." Jack offered over his shoulder as he stepped into his room. "Good night." In the morning, Anna came into the room quietly so as not to wake her charge. She stopped and looked down fondly at the boy curled in a tight ball in one half of the box bed, a bundle of shaggy gold taking up the other. Anna ran her hand across Bullett's fur, and he picked up his nose, opened one eye. Not a spare inch of space around them showed anywhere between the sideboards for either of the two in the bunk. Bullett thumped his tail twice and lay his head back down alongside Jack's spine. Anna selected clothes from Jack's case and laid them across the chair, confident now that they would stay put in the calm of the morning. She opened the curtains over the tiny window, letting in the bright sun. The sun lit a small card laying in a saucer on the table next to Jack's bed. In Arabic, the script said, "To Jack, a gift from a true sailor." Underneath it, in the saucer, lay a small gold loop just big enough to circle her pinky finger, and was split in one place, an earring. Anna crossed to the bed and gently shook Jack's shoulder. "Come on, Mr. Jack. It is time to wake up. Your adventure is waiting for you." Thank you.